Hi, I'm Ken Lammers. Welcome to Minor League Matters. Today we're going to talk about American soccer. So let's get cracking. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is basically the breakdown of the American soccer leagues, right? Now, you have to understand that there is something called, I think it's U.S. Soccer or American Soccer or whatever association. Now, this is pretty much your governing body. It is associated with FIFA, which, yeah, I guess you have to associate with these groups in order to do what you got to do to grow your sport internationally. Uh, I get, hold your nose and put up with the corruption and just move on. But this governing organization has broken down soccer into tiers in the United States. And tier one is what you've probably heard about, and that's MLS, Major League Soccer, right? These are the teams that are out there, the LA Galaxy, the Columbus Crew, the Portland Timbers, the teams you've probably heard of, or at least have heard of occasionally on ESPN, that sort of thing, right? These teams are out there and have been forever. Well, not forever. The league's not that old, but there have been prior attempts at a professional top level soccer league. MLS seems to be making it, right? It is involved in expansion right now. It just took in 2 teams this year. Atlanta United FC and Minneapolis United. The FC thing, SC, as one of my actual soccer snob buddies tells me, since it's soccer in the United States, it really should be SC, and some teams have done that. See the as much problems as I have with some of the stuff that the Crew have done with their new logo and that sort of thing. They at least did SC, right? And the United thing, DC United makes sense. It plays into being the capital of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. United elsewhere does not. It's lazy. Yes, I know Manchester United is a wonderful thing. It's lazy. It's bad naming. Go choose yourself a friggin' name. Be the Atlanta Kumquats or something. I'm sure you can hire an agency that can do a much better job of figuring it out than me. Anyway, getting back to it, MLS has decent sized stadiums, kind of stadium that looks around and you go, well, okay, that's a AAA baseball stadium or maybe a little bit larger. I suspect from what I'm told out west they have larger ones, and it seems to play at about what I would call in baseball a AAA level. Right now they're making attempts to raise this up by doing the designation rule where 2 players out that are hired from outside the U.S. or wherever don't count particularly against your salary cap. It's trying to figure out designation, allocation, all that sort of stuff with salary caps of MLS. There's just a nightmare of complexity, but MLS is trying to grow. It's trying to put good teams in. It's trying to make sure it has good locations when it does so. I suspect that, given time, and it may not be in my lifetime, but 50 years from now, the MLS or whatever succeeds the MLS will be a substantial ongoing thing, right? Soccer is growing in the U.S. It's not, like when I grew up, soccer was really kind of a girl's sport, at least where I was. But it's growing up. It's growing everywhere. And I think that it's going to be a major sport in the future. Like I say, right now it's probably about AAA level, but in the future, it'll be better. Now, below Tier 1, there are 3 other tiers, as best I can tell. Now, there used to be leagues that filled each of these tiers, right? The NASL was the second tier, and the NASL has kind of a weird schedule where they play like an early year schedule and a late year schedule with a break in between, as I understand it, which is kind of unusual, but okay. The NASL has tried to play where they would be in larger arenas. They've had defections to both the USL and the MLS grabbing teams. The NASL has had issues with USA Soccer, claiming that it is in collusion with MLS so that the NASL cannot move up to Tier 1. And there's some reason to think that that could be true. Commercial agreements, money going back and forth, that sort of thing. But the NASL has also really not grown, and it doesn't have that feeling like it's booming like others. Although it is trying, and my understanding is they plan this year to put a couple new teams in. But it's a smaller league, and it had also pushed for, as I understand it, relegation, which is something that they do in Europe that American sports aren't going to do, or at least not anytime in the near future, where a team that's in Tier 1, if you finish last in your league, you can get swapped down to the next league, and that league's top team moves up into Tier 1, right? So I think they were pushing for a relegation, or hoping at least for a relegation situation, which is not going to happen in a place where you're trying to convince people to put millions of dollars into a stadium and a team. Because, hey, we want you to make the Rochester ringleaders, right? The greatest soccer team of all time. Well, we've only got so much money, and we're only, there's already well-established teams and everything. What happens if we end up in last place? Well, you get moved into a lower league. What? You want me to put $50 million into all this just so that after a couple of years I can get moved to a lower league with less opportunity? No. So that's not going to happen with the MLS, right? And so the NASL is, I won't say it's played out. It's still got a chance, and God bless them, and I hope they keep moving along. But they have not done as well at Tier 2 as I think they had hoped to. Used to be Tier 3 was the USL, right? United Soccer League. I think USL. USL this year got moved up to from Tier 3 to Tier 2. Now last year, the USL made agreements, a lot of teams in the USL made agreements with teams in the MLS to be effectively their minor league affiliate, right? And some of the MLS teams just moved their second team into the USL. So, for instance, the New York Red Bulls, the New York Red Bull 2 are in the New York Red Bulls 2 are in the USL. I think the same thing for the LA Galaxies. I think LA Galaxy has, moved a LA Galaxy 2 into the USL, right? Well, at that point, USL was the Tier 3 league, but it was growing, it's booming, it's everywhere, it's putting new teams in, although, again, you get things like Louisville FC, where they don't even bother to choose a mascot, and they do FC, and it's just, not that that keeps them from having some good fans, just kind of lazy and not very well done. But, and they also play on the Louisville Bats baseball field, although I understand that sometime in the next year or two, they're supposed to get their own stadium. But the USL is booming. It's growing. It's going to go. It's in Tier 2. It's going to keep expanding to become a bigger and bigger league. And I think that in the end, it will probably squeeze the NASL out. Maybe the NASL will become the Tier 3 league. We'll see. Okay, so the USL is growing. It's booming. Probably the only problems it might have are, if it gets too successful in one city, the MLS may move in and just bump them out. But that's always a problem if you're a lower level minor league sport. So tier 3 now has nothing in it, right? It's just blank, empty. Again, maybe in the future the NASL will move down there. I know they don't want that to happen. And maybe some of the tier 4 teams will move up, or leagues will move up. But my thoughts are that, from what I can feel and figure out, those leagues really don't have the money and the ability to do that. So tier 3 has sat open at the moment. Now below that, there's tier 4, right? Or at least there are leagues that claim to be tier 4, and there are 2 leagues that claim to be tier 4. There is the National Premier Soccer League and the Premier Development League. These teams are out there. I've never been to one of them, but they're scrapping for the bottom of the heap, and I think hoping to move up eventually. We'll see. But that's the way it breaks down. That's the way soccer breaks down in the U.S. I'm sure it breaks down differently in Europe, but I think that it's encouraging to see that soccer is developing a kind of United States minor league system, right? All Americanizations that have been attempted with soccer have not worked, and they're not going to work, right? I mean, for instance, why in the world would you count up instead of counting down and put time at the end rather than just stopping the clock, right? Why would you do that? Because that's the way the Europeans have done it, and that's the way it's been done forever. It's not as good, but it's not going to change either, guys. So you're just going to have to live with it. So the Americanisms that you might find that are good are probably going to be things like minor league affiliations and or maybe, choosing good names for your teams, like the LA Galaxy, the Portland Timbers, the Crew, etc., the Revolution, and going with that kind of branding, all of which can work really well. So that's American soccer, and if you have any questions, you probably should go to their websites and try to figure it out there. But I'm welcome to have them down here below. I'm figuring out soccer too myself, guys. If you like this one, click like. If you like what you've seen around, click subscribe. And, until the next time I put something up, go watch some minor league sports.